I would like to invite you to our stall, carrier stall at D14. It's just across. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ranjan Sinha. Moving to our next session is on development of perishable trade business in India. We've been talking about more on an infrastructure. We have been talking about multimodal logistics. How do we construct an infrastructure, goals in infrastructure, in a palletized way. But finally, everything has to come to the market. It should come to the wholesale market. It should come to the, it should go to the distribution center. Further, it has to be get distributed. We have a lot of challenges on the front end before it is getting distributed. I invite again Mr. Saravana Gughan, CEO of Green Kitchen Multi-Speciality Food, to come and take the session forward. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kumar. For this session, I would like to invite the eminent panelists to the dais, please. Mr. Tarun Arora, Mr. Hitin Suri, Mr. Bhupender Singh, please. Same presentation कुछ है तरुण का? हाँ, तरुण की PPT. Sure.
After your brief.
Once I finish the brief, then side by side. हाँ हाँ मैं करता हूँ. हाँ जी. हाँ मैं. You go ahead. चल नहीं रहा. PPT वगैरह नहीं खुल रही थी. क्या करना? Can I start? हाँ, you can start. Okay. Coming to this particular topic, let me give a bit of overview. India's food retail sector, which is comprising food, grocery, and QSR, which is called a food service, is valued at 25 lakh crore, which means close to 40 billion US dollars currently in 2014-15, and holds a 65% share in the country's total retail market. Out of this, food and grocery retail worth 23 lakh crore, and the food service market is valued at 2 lakh 10,000 crore. The average rate of growth during the past 4 years in food and grocery has been 15% per annum, and food services 22% per annum. That's one of the reasons I came out and invested into food service industry. Right? So I had my own company, Green Kitchen Multi-Speciality Food, through which we ran restaurants and getting into hospitality business. The respective growth rates expected to take these retail markets to 54 lakh. So 54 lakh crore and rupees 69,000 crore, 6 lakh 90,000 crore for hospitality industry by 2020. Out of which fresh food, which constitute fruits and vegetables, dairy, frozen food is going to be almost 42 to 45%. So the fresh food, the cold chain part, the food side of it is going to be almost 45% of 54 lakh crore, say in 2020. And the conveniences, as far as e-com is concerned, the convenience has overtaken the discount as a key reason for buying online. So it's a good news. So people were looking for discount. Now, convenience has taken over the discount. So 55% of the respondents had said that we don't look for discount. We look for convenience. So it's a good sign for the food and grocery market. And the digital purchase has been catalyzed by progress in infrastructure, including falling smartphone prices, reducing data charges, and rising smartphone penetration. In fact, smartphone penetration has increased from 3% to 30% from 2011 to 2016. So, beside, the price also had fell down by 50%. Hence, the e-grocery going to contribute around 3% of the overall food market size, what I talked about, 50 lakh, 54 lakh crore. As the aspirational level of the consumer in India is continued to drive the consumption growth in the areas of fresh dairy, protein food, packaged F&B, imported foods, etc. It's becoming mandatory for the industry to set up back-end and front-end cold chain and innovative packaging conditions and solutions, which has slowly started happening over past 5 or 6 years, and probably we will hear from you both, and including you. As I said in my earlier panel discussion, the Indian apple, which used to move in ambient, now started moving, after wax coated, get into proper pre-cooling and get into proper packaging. Then comes to controlled atmospheric storage, CA storage. Then it goes in the reefer truck to the needy market. So now we could see Indian apples for the period of 8 to even 10 or 11 months time, earlier which used to be 4 to 5 months. It's a great shift. It's a great shift. So while organized retail and e-grocery continue to fuel consumption growth, still challenges are there in ensuring temperature controlled products in last mile delivery, both in traditional, organized and e-commerce retail. To discuss this in detail, we are given the topic of development of perishable trade business in India with respect to challenges in wholesale retail distribution and e-commerce and perishable. To share the views, we have this eminent 3 panelists, and just to introduce Tarun. Tarun is the younger son of Arora business family, right? And he has over decade rich experience in the fresh produce industry. And he is instrumental in building 2,000 pallet capacity multi-temperature controlled cold storage. He is the director of IG group of companies, and he holds MBA from MIT. And then respectable Mr. Hitin Suri. Mr. Hitin Suri is the joint managing director of Suri Agro Fresh, which is the JV company of Total Produce, and Total Produce is the global largest fresh produce distributor, if I'm right. Right, and he has 30 plus years experience in cold chain and fresh produce industry. His company handles cold storage and pack houses for fresh produce, and he is also the senior VP of All India Cold Storage Association. And Mr. Bhupender Singh, CEO Ravi Agro Logistics India Private Limited. He has 17, 18 years experience in the areas of cold chain development, operations, fleet management, sales, business development, etc. He has worked with Proton Supply Chain Management Private Limited, Snowman Logistics, Future Supply Chain, and Re-Logistics India Private Limited, right, which was part of Reliance Logistics, right? So he holds Master of Mathematics graduation and post-graduation in Diploma Management. Okay, so now we will move straight to the questions, and this question is to Mr. Tarun. Before that, Mr. Tarun, if you have any presentation to share, please go ahead, and we have 5 to 7 minutes.
Thank you. Thanks. Hello, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you for the opportunity. Yeah, I mean, I'm going to be discussing the challenges in wholesale and retail in India. So this is the content of the presentation which I'll be giving. So primarily the challenges which I'm going to be focusing upon. I'll give you just a brief about IG International, what we are. So we are probably today one of the largest fruit conglomerate in the country. And we source fruits and vegetables from around the world and bring them to India. So we currently source around 31 countries is what we source produce from. So we've, over the period, developed quite large temperature-controlled warehousing, which currently holds around 40,000 pallets across the country. And we have our own reefer trucks, currently a pool of around 400 plus employees. So this is how our supply chain works. Before I move on to the challenges, I really want you to see how we work. So we work with the growers around the world, and that includes India as well. So, and then most of the grower from, let's say, outside of India would export their product in a sea container, which will come to their port, which is a port of departure, and it will come to our port, which is a port of arrival. And then from the port, it will probably go to a container freight station, and it will then go to our warehouses, and then it will probably go to our own wholesale outlets, and then it will go to the retail, and then to the end consumer. So this is really how the supply chain for IG works primarily. Without wasting too much time, I'll come on to where the market is today on cold chain. So today we're probably the largest producer of milk. So India is really, really massive in terms of where we are currently. I mean, we're probably the largest producers of mangoes, largest producers of banana, I mean, largest exporter of beef. You know, so this is where we are currently. So we are not small in terms of our requirement on cold chain. Coming on to my subject, which is more fresh produce. So this is where we stand in terms of fruits and vegetables, and where we being on the world map. You know. So the current fruit production which happens out of India is around 81 million ton. You know. So and in terms of vegetables, we have 160. So we're probably the second in the world. Okay, so growth is never by mere chance, you know, it is a result of forces working together. So there are some forces which are working together to get to where we are today. So, and one of the big significant, one of the big factors in this is the farming which is happening at the scale. So the farmers especially, I mean, and we should appreciate the farmers despite of not having the economies of scale which the world farmers have. Still India is kind of contributing quite large to the world fruits and vegetable sector. So these are some of the other forces as well, other than just the farming thing, which is the growth in the organized retail, the shift of horticulture crops. So there's more diversification coming into the horticulture crops. The farmers are becoming more knowledgeable. So, and the changing consumption pattern and the middle class, which is growing. So this is something which is important before we get on to the main challenges, which is the food loss comparison. So I've done a developed and a developing country comparison. So we are, so if you see a quite bit of shift, that 15 to 40 which goes on to losses of fruits and vegetables in a developed and a developing country is only the non-development of the cold chain. And this is where India is developing ahead. So this is the kind of difference which you see. In percentages, it might just look very small, but in terms of actual losses which happen, which are notional, it is quite large. So what do we need to do? How do we resolve this? The only way to resolve is to develop cold chain. We just need to have an unbroken temperature sensitive link. That is all what we need to do to save all these losses which have been happening. The supply chain actually, where it starts from a farmer where he consolidates everything, you know. So there are ways in which you can consolidate things as well. So many farmers are currently trying to learn. So currently a farmer will probably bring the produce, how he will do the harvesting. Now there are robotic systems in harvesting as well. So how well you are able to handle so that bruising does not happen on the tree when a laborer is going and plucking the apple from the tree, you know. So after that it comes to the pack houses, and what kind of protocols do you have at the pack house? So what kind of pre-cooling systems have you set up? Wherein how do you pre-cool, how do you quickly bring the heat from the produce down, wherein we have lost very little time into bringing that heat out and taking the heat out of the product. How are you doing the post-harvest? So how are you really taking care of the product? Are you doing any washing? So I'm just giving a classic example of apple in this case, wherein how are you washing it? How are you kind of applying, let's say, waxes, in case not waxes, but then how are you grading the entire thing? How are you packaging it? How are you sorting it? How are you grading it? So this is first part of the supply chain. And after that, it comes to the next part of the supply chain where it moves to the mother warehouse. So that is where, if you've stored at a good, that is your production center, for example. If you have a good cold store facility around it, you can store it there if you have to store it for a longer time. In case you don't want to store it for a longer time, you have to directly reach to the market. You will have to have a good transportation system in place. So you need to probably have refrigerated trucks, the railway wagons, which is not established in India today, the cargo containers. So currently, most of the things which are happening is currently smaller fleet trucks, which are 24-footer, 16-footer, 12-footer, you know. But things are changing. With the infrastructure development in the next 1 decade, the kind of expenditure which the government is doing in India, I mean, we're probably heading towards a 40-foot container transportations, which we'll very soon see. So most of the transportation will happen that way. Then it comes to the cold store facilities, the pack houses there in case you are doing some value adds for the retail, you know, in case you're putting them into the bags and then sending into the retail. Then the CA cold storages as well, you know. So it really depends on